G'day there, everyone. We are now live. My name is Daniel Anderson, Partner Manager and Product Evangelist at Valo. And today we've got a very special show for you. We're streaming live through YouTube and Twitter. Now, big couple of weeks in the Microsoft space. Obviously, last week with Microsoft Ignite wrapping up. We thought it would be a really good opportunity to bring a couple of experts onto the show today to give us a bit of a recap to what they took away from Microsoft Ignite and a couple of key points that were raised. So in just a second, we're going to bring them onto the stage. They're going to introduce themselves, and we're going to have a discussion about what they took away from the virtual event. Lots of big announcements and key takeaways. So we'll see what they got out of it as well. So as we are streaming live, if you do have any comments or questions, then post them. If you're following on either YouTube or Twitter, then post those in, and we'll bring those up on screen as well. So without further ado, first of all, going to bring on our first guest, Norm Young. So here he is here. Welcome, Norm. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Dan. It's a pleasure to be here. Shall I
And Norm, tell everybody that doesn't know you, that is chiming in and tuning in or watching the replay, who you are, what you do, and where you're dialing in from.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. My name's Norm Young. I'm the Director of Collaborative Analytics at a company called Unlimited Viz. We make a product called tyGraph, and tyGraph is an analytics and collaboration solution for Microsoft 365 using Power BI. Coming to tyGraph with 20 years in IT and manufacturing, and most recently in higher ed. I'm dialing in from a cloudy St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. That won't mean anything to you, but as I look out the window in front of me, I can see the mist coming up from Niagara Falls. If I look out the other window, I can see the skyline in Toronto. So I'm kind of in between places. I'm also a Microsoft MVP in the Office apps and services space. And like I said earlier, it's a pleasure being here. Thanks for having me, Daniel.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for joining. And next up, we have got another Guru Microsoft MVP that we're going to add now to the stream. Gökhan, how are you?
Bonsoir, mon ami. I'm very well. How are you doing?
I'm going very, very well. Now, for the people that are watching, for the hundreds that are watching, and maybe the couple that don't know who you are, tell us a little about yourself and what it is that you do.
Okay. So my name is Gökhan Ozifsi, probably the most difficult family name you will ever hear in the tech space. So please don't try to write it. Don't try to spell it. It's way too complicated. Gökhan. I'm the only Gökhan in the world, I think, in the tech space at least. So
do you notice how I didn't say your surname? I just refer you to you're somebody that can just have one name, so it's just Gökhan.
I know. I know the struggle. I'm living with that struggle since 35 years. So I'm dialing in from Belgium, from Brussels, the capital of Europe. It is almost at 10 p.m. And I'm VP and Microsoft Regional Director, dialing in, trying to enable organizations, partners at Valo to empower the collaboration space. So a pleasure to be here with you and talk about Ignite.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Thanks for joining as well. Now, obviously, there's traditionally there's a lot of big news, a lot of announcements, and that type of thing coming out of Ignite. Now, pre-Ignite, there was all the buzz and everything around Microsoft Viva that was announced prior to Ignite. Now, I think a lot of people were expecting a lot more of that topic to come out of Ignite. There didn't seem to be what people were expecting on that front, but also what I thought was a little bit interesting. And again, coming from the SharePoint space, there's generally a lot of things that come out from around SharePoint at these type of events that didn't. Well, for me, there didn't seem to be a lot of big news in that space. Did you get that sort of same feeling, Norm?
I did. It's like they didn't want to take the attention away from Viva and the Viva announcements. But if you're watching the Microsoft 365 Message Center or the roadmap, you do see all of those continual, although a bit minor to the user experience, but enhances functionality, updates that are continuing to be invested in that space to modernize all things SharePoint.
Yeah. And Gökhan, lots of Teams related. I know you're very big in this space, and we're very keen on a lot of the Teams announcements that came out of Ignite, and one that was really, and again for me, really interesting as well, was around Microsoft Teams Connect. Can you tell everybody, I guess, your take on Teams Connect and what value you think that's going to bring to everybody?
So first things first, I don't know if you guys remember, but when Microsoft acquired Nokia, they had those first Windows phones, which was like very colored, and Apple copied literally the colored phones, and they had the first iPhone 6, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
Yeah, with colors, and then Microsoft made a wonderful tweet which said like copying is the best of flattery or something like that. So if a Microsoft guy is listening to us, I just want to say the same, that the copying is the best flattery, because we were the first doing Valo Connect. Now they have something called Microsoft Teams Connect. Well, thank you, Microsoft. Joke aside, this is a big game changer, because with Microsoft Teams Connect, remember the struggle that we had whenever you were invited in multiple tenants in different teams. You always had to sign off and sign into that tenant, and the notifications was a bit messy. You will never got the notifications. You couldn't really be productive because, and it's a consultant life, right? We all have access to different tenants and channels, and the information wasn't coming to us. With shared channels today, well, a team can invite external people to that specific team. So you, from one team's screen, from your tenant, you'll be able to see data that comes through different tenants, which is fantastic, right? And that's what we have been waiting for. So I always say now, since the announcement of Microsoft Teams Connect, that the accounts and the tenant switch is going to die, because you don't really need it now, because from your main account you can definitely access all data that you need. On the other hand, well, it's always security and the usage of those functionalities, and it will bring a lot of headaches to the security and compliance team in organizations. You may apply any DLP rule, any security asset on those data, and you may, have the most secure environment and be sure that no data is leaked in your team's environment. But if you are using a shared channel, well, that rules and specific security artifacts will not apply into that shared channel, because you have no access on the other guy's tenant. So it is definitely a big added value, because I will be proactive. I will have data instantly to anything. Notifications will be working as smooth as possible. But on the other hand, I can already see a lot of organizations, especially in the banking sector, being like, oh my gosh, how am I now be sure that no data is leaking, because the other guys from other companies can easily access and get in, and my rules will not apply to them. So that's the only tricky part I see today. But otherwise than that, being able to get data instantly from one screen, well, my gosh, thank you, Microsoft. We have been waiting for this for almost since day one. So that's a big deal. And
how I've read some commentary around the I guess the architecture of these shared channels. I know, obviously, with private channels, we're getting a whole new site collection and that type of thing in the back end. What are your thoughts around, or have you seen what that type of structure is going to look like? Are we going to be getting even more site collections now?
Yes, we will. We will get a lot of more, like, site collections everywhere. Site collections for everyone, for everything. Site collections. Well, there was a big question, like, why are those private or shared channels, the sites that are attached to that, not connected to the group, right? And when I'm doing a training or doing some webinars, I always get the same question: why do we have a specific site collection, and why aren't they attached to the existing group? Because every team is a group, and every group has a SharePoint site for the storage. So why don't we use the same? Well, first things first, the security. Every group owner could potentially see your data, which is connected to your group. And we don't want to have that, right? We don't want to have that owner from your group accessing your private channel data. And I think they decided to do the same for the shared channels. They don't want to have actually any admin, any group admin, any Teams admin getting your data, so they just make a separate site collection, which only the owner can see the data with the invited people into that. Is this a good approach? Well, they have no other chance. Like the group engine that's running behind Teams, that's running behind the private channels, well, they had no other choice to do that. If they had to change, I'm pretty sure if you ask the engineers at Microsoft, they will say, yes, we want to change. But I think they're just at the level where they can't just go back and say, like, hey, let's change the whole collaboration artifact and do something else with the M365 groups. That's how it is. Do I like it? Yes and no. Was it a must? I think so.
Yeah, very good. Now, Norm, you love your Microsoft lists, as I do, and there was some interesting things that came out of Ignite around Microsoft lists. Now, one of those was some enhancements, I guess, to the Teams experience when using lists, and also with custom list templates. That I'm, that's one of the things that I think is going to add a lot of value to a lot of people, being able to create your own custom lists. What else did you take out of Ignite from this Microsoft lists space?
I agree. The list templates has such a huge potential to impact organizations if they have someone who's savvy enough to create a solution based on a list and then can roll it out to others to develop those economies of scale. One of the other things that I liked for empowering users is the list rules that have been in general availability for targeted release for lists in the last month or so, but now they're coming to Teams, so now people can stay in the context of their digital home to build out those if-then rules associated with Teams. So one of those great things that they can do is to set reminders when something is due. They can alert if a value has changed based on their business conditions. And the beauty is they're not relying on traditional IT. One of the things that I think is going to be super impactful for users on the list front, and it's going to sound very simple, but the comments, adding comments, a whole conversation stream around a list item can bring collaboration into a business process for users. And these are the types of processes that are maybe not big and would warrant an enterprise application or an ERP, but these things that are done in list truly reflect something that's very important to those business users, and giving them more context in the same location where they're working, it reduces some of that friction that they might have otherwise trying to collaborate. So I think it's a really good step forward. Did you happen to see the updates around the list calendar view that's coming out?
I haven't.
So a list view, and it'll be as you alter the view setting, you can see the calendar view of your same data. So imagine an event scheduler type of list. Now you can see all of the data and those attributes that you want to surface exposed in the context of a calendar. So it's going to be a great user experience. And to complement that, they're also bringing out a new SharePoint or an updated SharePoint web part that takes advantage of that calendar view. So that's going to be huge for the intelligent intranet that people are investing so heavily in. So yes, big fan of lists. Really glad to see the changes that are coming there.
Now I can already hear the comments, and the first comments about that calendar view about, can we overlay it with Outlook calendars? Can we integrate it with Outlook? Can we, that type of thing, as it's always, SharePoint calendars have always, I guess, drawn those type of comments. I don't suppose that there's going to be that type of functionality, or not that I've seen anyway. Not that I've seen either, but it's early days with a lot of this. So who knows what next year looks like on this front. We do know that the modernization efforts are continuing. We saw it with like SharePoint modern site pages and document library experiences. We're getting the same treatment in lists. And I think that's part of the reason why I'm so excited about it, is to see it come on par with all the other experiences in SharePoint. Yep. And another interesting thing that I saw it at Ignite, and you were heavily involved in this, was around a customer story about Brock University. So they've been using lists to manage student exchange agreements. Is that right? That is right. And so prior to coming to Unlimited Viz and Tygraph, I worked at Brock University for a number of years, and education's a really interesting place to work. You get all of these amazing tools, like you get Office 365, you get all the bells and whistles that go with it at a really reduced rate. And you have large ERP systems, like top of the line Workdays, PeopleSoft, whatever the case might be. So it's like a rags to riches story. And so the core business functions, they get all of the attention, rightly so. And sometimes the smaller processes get left behind from those big application implementations. And so on multiple occasions, I think it was 3 times while I was at Brock, in some form or another, one of the faculties or departments needed to manage their exchange agreement. So an exchange agreement is very much like a contract with another university. It's non-binding, it's not financial, so it can be created loosely. And so this led to people administering it using a SharePoint spreadsheet from their desktop computer. It's fine, it works, but unfortunately, I think, and this unfortunate thing happened, some of the agreements slipped and they expired. And so that ended up becoming this catalyst for change. And at the time, I'm working in this large IT department. I'm focused on larger priorities, but I have this wonderful tool set at my disposal in Microsoft 365 and Power Platform. My boss is like, give this group a small amount of your time to try and modernize their process. So we take the Excel spreadsheet in all 3 cases, talk to the users to understand their business process, and try and find opportunities to add value. So we use some of the great features that came out with lists, import or create a list from an existing Excel spreadsheet. That's huge. Like, you can modernize a group and centralize and bring transparency into their data and processes just by importing an Excel spreadsheet into a list. Great experience. Use things like site columns that can leverage other bits of metadata that exist in this system. Think of a person column. So basic, right? It's you create column person and you get all the attributes about it. But it gives you the opportunity to leverage that information using tools like Power Automate. So I can get your email address, Dan, I can get Gokin's home office, and I can find some ability to bring value by automating some of those mundane tasks. Even other classic SharePoint things, like using created columns to do on the fly simple math calculations for them, and just try and
configure as much of the solution using the out-of-the-box functionality to give them something that reflects their needs, low investment on our part when we created this system, and it's a high return on investment. So I did it 3 times, and it blew my mind how much value we could get out of such a small investment. My background has always been working in the data platform, and I never would have considered a SharePoint list as a database. I mean, it's like a spreadsheet, right? Like, you can't think of it as something too complex. And so when I come from like this online transaction world or the data warehouse world, and I'm looking at the simplicity of a SharePoint list, I also see the opportunity in it for users to bring value by centralizing and then looking for opportunities to add value through things like automation and centralization. So I may have frowned on something like a list earlier in my career, but now I think for users that can't rely on traditional IT and just need to be empowered, lists are such an awesome opportunity. And when I was working at Brock, myself and some of my colleagues, we would use it as one of the tools in that toolbox that we had with Office 365 to enable those small areas that were left behind in some of those things. So it was a big honor to actually to be asked to share that story with the broader community. So
I'll post that in the follow-up. I'll post a link to that case story too. Not to mention the lists mobile experience as well, and the mobile apps, which are very, very good. I must admit, accessing that from your phone is amazing.
I'm jealous.
Yeah, I just love lists, but I think the story is not complete yet. So let me tell you, just in a few minutes, I was delivering a training to a company where I introduced Microsoft Lists. And then one of the CSO or CXO, I can't remember anymore, just said like, hey, when is Microsoft going to bring Docs, like Microsoft Docs? I said, like, you have OneDrive, right? So why would you... Like, I still remember when Jeff Tipo told us, like, hey, we did Microsoft List because some of the big companies requested to do a list without creating a SharePoint site, which I think was great. But then the guy told me, like, Gokun, I would never use OneDrive. It's so messy, it doesn't sync. I said, like, hey, the next generation, the new client is great. You could use it, and showing all the experiences that you could do. He was still not convinced. He was so convinced that OneDrive would actually lose his documents. He said, like, the only thing that I would use is when they will come out with Microsoft Docs, which is maybe a rebranding of SkyDrive to OneDrive, from OneDrive to Microsoft Docs. And just, you know, it was a funny moment, which on the moment I said, like, that's not a good idea. But how more I think, how more I just like the idea of having a Microsoft Docs. What do you think? Is that something that Microsoft could invest, or?
Have you already trademarked that Microsoft Docs? You better get onto that.
Registering the
URL. I mean, it might be, you know, from a branding exercise, it might be good. I mean, there's always a confusion with the OneDrive brand, right? You got OneDrive Personal, you got OneDrive Consumer, you got OneDrive for Business. It might be be interesting to see if it just was a branding exercise, whether it would change people's perception of it.
Interesting. You know, we're in this space. We're paid to pay attention and stay on top of these things, but the change rate is so rapid. Sometimes I struggle. I imagine you struggle to keep up as well. Imagine the users.
Oh my gosh.
OneNote, OneDrive,
yeah,
Teams site. You know, it's like there's so much confusion. Lists. So when I first heard that List was breaking out as its own application, even though, like, under the hood it was the same thing essentially, and that you know, I was like, well, maybe this is good because there's such an investment on the communication side of SharePoint that they're trying to create two identities, in my opinion, where Teams is the central location for collaboration, Lists is for your small business data, and SharePoint is really going to be focused towards that intelligent intranet and those communication sites with all those awesome web parts and stuff. And so now I can kind of see that marriage together, and I can just say to a user or a customer, say, Teams is for collaboration, SharePoint's for communication sites, and we'll plug that into Teams while we're at it. Lists is for your tracking and your small data collector area, stuff like that. And so I think in the long run, it's going to help users understand that landscape of all the different apps that we have out there.
Yeah. Yes. Very, very interesting. Now, back onto the team space, Gökhan. What about the announcement around the webinar functionality in Teams? I know you do a lot in this space. You present and at a lot of different events and that type of thing. What's is this going to be a good thing, and what's it going to bring, I guess, to Teams? I have heard that it might be just internal. Is it going to be external as well?
I don't know. I didn't see anything around internal, external. I was so excited about already the idea of having webinars where you can actually set up a webinar where you can follow up with attendees, where you can even have reports on who did join, when they did join, when they did leave the meeting, those KPIs in webinars. That's fantastic. That's actually one of the things that was missing in Teams. Like when we were doing trainings and giving workshops, it was always outside of the Teams space. We went to Zoom or we went to any other competitor and using that. And using the competitor tool to promote Teams was always a bit tricky to convince those people who were listening to your story. So now having those webinar meetings, being able to receive emails, confirmation, tracking, reporting, KPIs, all of them in Teams, for me, that's the most exciting stuff that I was waiting, because my job is in Teams. I live in Teams with all of those stuff. So I'm really looking forward on how they will implement it. If, as you mentioned, it's only for internal people, I'm pretty sure it's going to be only for V1, and on the next releases or next updates, they will opening it up for external people. I can't imagine releasing webinars if it's only for internal people. Like Stream, another example. One of the reasons why it never did really well or the adoption was so bad is because external people could not join and watch your videos. And if they do the same with webinars, well, then they're gonna, I think, epically fail as they did with Stream. So I don't see this as an option. Yeah.
Now, again, it doesn't have to be Teams, obviously, but what else? Is there anything else that came out of Ignite that were, I guess, big key takeaways for you, Gökhan?
Viva was another one that I was really looking forward. Other than that, I didn't really watch. And honestly, I don't know if you feel the same, but being on the chair for 8 hours and listening, it's not my stuff. I couldn't watch every single detail at Ignite, but Teams and Viva were the two main areas I was watching. So if you ask me what was really the thing after Teams, I would say Viva.
Yeah. They just seemed, especially in the Viva spot, I think I was expecting a little bit more from around that whole topic, I guess. There didn't seem to be a lot of stuff that we didn't, I guess, necessarily know before Ignite. There's obviously a number of modules there that still aren't ready to go, obviously. There's a couple there that are. But from a marketing aspect, obviously very, very good, looks amazing and that type of thing. But I guess we're still a little bit unsure of the other modules that are going to be delivered and what they're going to offer as well.
Yeah. So someone close to the SharePoint team at Redmond, and I'm not gonna give his name, once told me that at every event they have to have something really interesting, even if it's not ready yet. And when you look like 2 years back when they announced Project Cortex, right? That was the big next thing. And then we had to wait for months before getting something. And then they introduced, if I'm not wrong, last year at SharePoint conference in Vegas, Jeff Deeper with SharePoint Spaces, right? Nobody was expecting SharePoint Space, and wow, suddenly we were seeing Jeff Deeper presenting SharePoint Spaces, and now at Ignite they had to do something, and it was Microsoft Viva. And we had a lot of meetings, right, Daniel, at Valo with those product owners, and literally nor the licensing nor the product was ready yet. Even after the announcement, just like 1 or 2 weeks after the announcement, people got invited for the dev kitchen at Microsoft to see how the product was going to look like, and how Insights was going to work, how Connections was going to work. So I think it was a perfect match for boosting the excitement around Ignite and say like, hey, Microsoft Viva is here, like they did for Project Cortex, like they did for SharePoint Spaces. And I think it's within the coming weeks and months that we will see those coming in first release and being able to use it. I think that some partners, including Valo, already have access to a tenant where they can already play around and see how Insights and learning and Connections are doing. But I think we still have to wait, because even at Microsoft, and I don't know if I can say it, but like they were giving XYZ.
It's not recorded or anything. You'll be right. Just
cool.
say it.
So they were giving like XYZ as information in the dev kitchen, and 3 days later it was ABC, completely different. So I think even at Microsoft they still have to figure out how to place and do stuff. But yeah, pretty excited about how they will complete the collaboration offer at Teams level, and how actually they're going to compete with the 99,000 other vendors doing stuff on SharePoint and Teams. So interesting time to be in tech.
It is very interesting, and as you know, we're pretty excited about the efforts that we're putting in as well around, especially around Connections and a couple of other of those modules in at Valo as well, which will be pretty good to see what comes out of that. Now, Norm, have you seen much of Viva and that topic? Well, pardon the pun, topic, not topics, but the topic. And what are your initial thoughts?
I'm using Insights, and I do like that it's giving me those custom reminders or tasks for me to do, and I'm okay with my information being mined out of my inbox and stuff like that. But I can't imagine a lot of people do like that outside of this space that we all work in. So I like functionally Insights works for me. It adds value to my day. I find topics very interesting, and I know it was born out of Syntex or Cortex, one of those two. And I never had an opportunity to do it as a Office 365 practitioner in my previous job. So I always liked the idea of it, because retaining that corporate information or that organizational information and not having to reinvent the wheel about what an acronym means, it just seems like such a great investment for large organizations. This idea that Teams and all of these Viva connections will just be like your only interface sounds great to me for users. I wonder how they're going to keep it engaging in time. Looking at the same interface day after day after day might be problematic for some users. There's been a lot of talk around diversity and inclusion outside of Viva, and I know that modules are potentially coming to either the experiences side or just in Teams in general as a Microsoft application that we'll try and show how organizations are dealing with that as well. So I don't know if that really speaks to the Viva piece, but when I think about Ignite, that was one of the ones that kept coming up for me is understanding how organizations are adopting it and facilitating that. So I'm looking forward to seeing more Viva, but until I get hands-on, it's hard to really know which direction this is really going to go.
Yeah, it is. It is definitely. All right, so obviously, yeah, lots of big announcements that we've gone through there that have come out of Ignite. Now, I really appreciate everybody's time, and Gökhan's going to chime in as well, and he's got some more stuff for us.
No. Just wanted to say, during the keynote, they made an amazing keynote with Pokemon. Right, so I'm a Pokemon Go Battle League champion. So I was pretty excited when I just saw John Hank coming on stage presenting the AI and Pokemon. Just wanted to say that was a really fantastic. Honestly, I know a lot of criticism went away when they just came out. Hey, where is the business value on presenting Pokemon and all that stuff? But honestly, as a Battle League champion, as a level 50 trainer on Pokemon Go app, I just wanted to say thank you. That was really fantastic. Honestly, fantastic.
Very good. Lastly, I just wanted to thank you, Norm, for jumping on. I know it was a little bit late notice and time and that type of thing, but I really appreciate your time, taking the time out and sharing your insights. Once again, a really great case study, and I'm going to be posting that out after this as well, and your involvement in there, especially with lists. Lots of great stuff happening there. So thanks again.
My pleasure. It's great to be here. I really appreciate it.
And your work around the analytics side with Tygraph is obviously is bringing a lot of value as well. So excellent work. Now, Gökhan, as always, great to chat, mate. And again, thank you. Not the best time for you as well, but thanks for jumping on and sharing your insights around what you got out of Ignite as well.
De rien, no worries, my friend.
All right. So for everybody that tuned in live, hope you enjoyed that. If you're watching the recording, then I hope you get a lot out of that. If you do have any questions, hit any of us up. Now, Norm, just before we go, where can everybody find you on the socials?
Yeah, please reach out. Find me at Stormin_30 on Twitter and LinkedIn. I think it's Norm-Young.
Excellent. And Gökhan? Just search for Gökhan. That's it.
There's only one.
Yeah, X Gökhan. So the reason why I never use my family name, it's just the X Gökhan, and you can find me out. It's the same for Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. X Gökhan is more than enough.
Very good. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day. Have a good evening, wherever you're tuning in from, and we'll see you next time.